let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress running the numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, Chase Points, 10 best and 5 worst uses of Ultimate Rewards. Last week, we talked about how to amass Chase Ultimate Rewards points. And this week, we're going to talk about some of our favorite ways to use them and some of our least favorite ways, things that you should avoid.
Yeah, and that's important, the things that you should avoid doing so you don't use your points at low value. You know, I find these two topics both interesting because some people are all about the thrill of the hunt, right? Some people just really want to amass lots of miles of points and like to see a huge balance growing. But I think I am more, I mean, I like that, but I think I'm more in the camp of it's more fun to use the points, right, to redeem them. So I'm kind of excited about talking about redeeming them, but I think that both sides have their dopamine hit, and we'll talk more about some of the best uses today. But don't forget, we always have the timestamps in the show notes. So if you want to jump ahead to a specific section or you want to return to something again later on, you can find those timestamps in the show notes. Just expand the description box. And wherever you're watching or listening, please give us a like, give us 5 or 6 or 12 stars or whatever it is. Leave us a rating and let us know what you think about everything that we have to say today. All right, let's talk about this week's announcements. We got some announcements to start with, right?
Yeah, we do. So we are introducing a new weekly series of videos on YouTube. So I'm sorry for those who just like to listen via podcast, but these are specifically visual. This is Nick and I walking you through how to do stuff on a desktop, and so it doesn't translate well to podcast form. So please make sure to go over to our YouTube channel and follow it, so you'll be alerted when there's new stuff. So far, we released how to use Delta companion tickets. So I showed Nick how to book, for example, round trip to Hawaii and add a companion for free, where free means you pay a little in taxes and fees. Coming soon, we've recorded but haven't yet published 4 ways to book Hyatt Qsuites with your Hyatt Rewards. And there's just many more coming soon because we're going to be recording these every week.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch more coming, and hopefully they'll be useful. We've often found that people like the how-to videos, and we decided, well, why don't we just record these together and show people how to do stuff? So hopefully you'll find them useful. Like Greg said, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel in order to get notified when we publish those, because we haven't, I don't think, landed on an exact publication schedule for that yet. So at any rate, you'll want to subscribe so that you can find out when those come out, and we'll obviously probably publish stuff on the blog about them as well as we do them. So again, hopefully you find that useful. Let us know in the comments on this what you would like to see a how-to video about. We'd love to hear from you in terms of what you think we should be talking about, how to do, or showing people how to do. All right, but that's not it. We also this week have an updated resource to discuss. So Tim updated our post about using buying groups. So buying groups are a way to increase credit card spend and get most of your money back. And so, or sometimes even more than you spent. And this can be a really good way to do that, right? To increase your credit card spend. But it's not without some potential caveats, without some potential pitfalls and problems. So make sure you read the post for the cautions. But it's newly updated, so he's got lots of new information about buying groups in there. So if you're kind of interested in dipping your toes in that field, that pool, then this could be a good thing to read to get started. And again, for those who aren't familiar with buying groups, the basic idea is that you buy a product that, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to pick Amazon as an example, and this is probably a bad example, but let's say Amazon puts a product on sale, but they limit it to 1 per person. Well, buying group is a group that will say, okay, well, if you buy that and give it to us so that we can resell it, we'll pay you back your money, or sometimes a little bit of profit, or sometimes a little bit of loss, depending on the situation. But that's the general idea of a buying group. There are a lot of things to know, though, so you'll want to check out that post. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Yep.
All right, let's drag out this week's giant mailbag.
All right. Today's giant mail comes from Amanda. Amanda says, I've heard y'all say you don't think very many people use the online grocery shopping bonus category of the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. Perhaps you're wrong about that. Many, many, many moms, I like how Amanda counted them up. Many moms buy the bulk of our weekly groceries online for pickup because it means that we don't have to drag children into the grocery store. It's a miracle of modern grocery shopping, and we love it. And it's usually cheaper because there are fewer impulse purchases. This 3X bonus category, which I use at Kroger and HEB in Texas, earns my family an extra 24,000 points per year in Ultimate Rewards. Um, and uh, she says, and that's actually, she's actually goes on to say she actually earns 36,000 points, but she's not counting the base number of 12,000 that she would have earned if she didn't get 3x for this category. So that was a little confusing, but anyway, she's basically, to sum up, she's getting 36,000 points from buying groceries. So that's pretty good.
Hmm.
All this to say, online grocery shopping for pickup might be much more popular than you can see. What do you think, Nick? Did we undervalue this benefit?
Maybe we did. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that that exploded in popularity during the pandemic, and I'm sure tons of people have remained used to doing it. So I think that's a great point. I appreciate the feedback on that one, Amanda. So thanks for putting us in our place on that one. Do you use online grocery pickup, and why or why not? Is this something you do
I
or in your household?
don't. I don't. I've used it. Boy, couple
Hmm.
times
Yeah.
over time. But
Just goes to show
no,
how
I
out of
mean, I
touch we
like
are.
to
We
go
don't really
and
either.
see what see what's actually there. Pick out, because especially with things like
That's it.
fruit and meat, you want
Yep.
to see what you're actually getting and not let someone else pick it up for
That's
you.
that's exactly why we don't. We did use it some during the pandemic, of course, and that's exactly why we don't, because so many times we ended up getting produce or it's fruit or vegetables essentially that were not the ones we would have picked, and our younger son is very particular. Let's say he eats almost exclusively fruit, and so if we buy a bunch of fruit and a bunch of it's not good, that's like the wasted money there is probably more significant than the amount of time we might have saved by doing online. So we don't do online a lot, but if we shopped differently, where we were buying produce, or maybe a lot of people subscribe to some sort of a service to get fresh produce regularly and then just go and buy the dry goods. And if you're in that kind of a situation, I could totally see it. And obviously, if you've got a grocery store that's good at giving you good produce, then I would enjoy the convenience of that. So, and I bet that Amanda's right. I bet there are tons of people that would find a use in that. So thank you for mentioning that, because that hopefully will plant a seed in some minds out there who are like, oh yeah, actually, we either do that or could do that and earn a lot of points that way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I would bet that there's even some dads out there, and maybe even some childless people who do online pickup as well. Um,
One or two out there. Could be. All right, very good. Thanks for that, Amanda. Let's talk about card news. Card news this week. The Wyndham cards are out with brand new offers, increased offers on each of the different Wyndham cards, both the consumer and the business cards. So that's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Wyndham cards are pretty solid. Just having any one of them means you get a 10% discount on any Wyndham award stays. That includes when you use your points to book Vacasa vacation rentals. So it can be valuable just to have the cards on their own, even if you aren't getting a big welcome bonus. But what we're seeing now is the no fee Wyndham Earner card is offering a 45K bonus after 2K spend in 6 months. So you've got plenty of time to meet that. Even better, I think, the Earner Plus card, which it does cost $75 a year, but you get 7,500 points each year that you renew. So that really makes up for that annual fee. That one is offering 75,000 points after the same 2K spend in 6 months. So I would definitely go for that over the earner if I could, like if I had to choose one. But we love the earner business card, which is the $95 card, and that one though requires a lot of spend to get the full bonus. So up to 80,000 points you can get with this one. The way it works is you get 40,000 points after 4K spend in 90 days, and then another 40K points after $15,000 spend in the first year, 365 days. Um,
That's a lot of spend.
it's a lot of spend, but if you can do it, maybe you've got some buying groups lined up. Then you, I just want to remind people just very briefly some of the benefits that we love about this card. It gives you 15,000 points every anniversary, so that way more than makes up for the $95 annual fee. Gives you diamond status, which you can read Nick's posts about how to match to casino status and then get all kinds of free cruises and free dinners and whatever, lots of stuff. You can earn 8 points per dollar for gas or gas stations, anything you buy at gas stations, and 5x for utilities. And that's just some of the benefits. So a lot of great benefits for a $95 card. And so if you
Yeah.
can meet the spend, that's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean that's a card to have and hold that I just think makes tons of sense to have for a lot of people, you know, because even if you're not going to use the points every year, you know, even if you're not going to use Wyndham points every year, I would buy if they put them on sale once a year, 15,000 points for $95. I'd buy it. I mean, I'd be happy to pay that price and say, okay, well, someday I'm going to use those points at more value than that probably. So I would be good just with that. And then also getting 8x gas stations, 5x utilities, and the ability to get Caesar's Diamond so you can match around. I mean, that's just, I think it's a terrific deal, one of the best deals out there. And if we didn't mention it already, don't forget that all of these cards give you a 10% discount on Wyndham redemptions. So whether you're redeeming for a Wyndham hotel, if it costs 15,000 points, then you're only going to spend 13,500 points. It's not a rebate. You don't need to have the 15K. You get a 10% discount on award redemptions. And that same discount also applies to their partner redemptions. So if you're redeeming Wyndham points for Vacasa vacation rentals, which we've talked about a lot before, you get that 10% discount there. That makes points pretty easily worth about 1.3 cents per point, varies depending on the cost of the property you're going to book. And their cottages.com partnership in the UK also, again, you get the 10% discount. So certainly worth considering one of those cards. If you can meet the spend, I would probably be considering one of those cards because those are nice offers.
So speaking of Wyndham,
What crazy thing did Wyndham do this week? So Wyndham got crazy with us this week.
they really did. Why don't you talk us through this, Nick? Because you posted right about how
Yeah.
we all
Yeah.
received an email
Hmm.
from Wyndham. Card holders
Yeah.
received it.
Yeah. Cardholders received an email. So Greg and I both have the Wyndham Earner Business Card. And so I know that people with that card at least received an email from Wyndham talking about all the great benefits of their Wyndham Earner Business Card, one of which is the fact that points never expire. And I didn't even notice that. I didn't click on the email, to be honest. A reader had noticed that and sent us an email and said, hey, they sent out this email saying points never expire. And I went to the Wyndham terms and conditions, and it only mentions the fact that points earned from stays expire, not points earned from credit card spend. So I went and I took a look at it, and he was absolutely right. That's exactly what it says. In the Wyndham Rewards terms and conditions, it says that points earned from stays will expire 4 years from the date of checkout. And then it goes on to say all points will be forfeited if you have no activity for more than 18 months. And so it seems to differentiate between the points earned from stays and all of the points in your account. At least the way I read that's what it sounded like to me. And that combined with the email to cardholders saying points never expire led us to believe that points earned from credit card spend don't expire anymore, or that Wyndham perhaps had made a change, an unannounced change there. So we published that, and I was pretty confident about the fact that they sent the email. I mean, Barclays is taking on, I would say, a good deal of responsibility for that after sending out an email saying that the points don't expire, right? Because if somebody were to file a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau complaint down the road that their points expired, I think Barclays would have a hard time winning that one after sending out an email saying the points never expire with their card. But regardless, we reached out to Wyndham, and Wyndham informed us that, oh no, that's not correct. That was a mistake in the email. Points really do expire after 4 years. Doesn't matter how you earned them.
Yeah, yeah. So something's wrong in Wyndhamville or Barclaysville, as you said. That was a big mess up, and I tried to prod them for more information about like ha how the mess up happened and what, if anything, they're gonna do about it. Because at the very minimum, there should be a broad announcement going out saying, "Oops, we made a mistake." But it'd be
Right.
nice if they did something better than that, like change their dumb policy. Because I think it's worth. I know Nick sort of alluded to their dumb policy, but let me make it really clear. Like almost every program, points expire if there's no activity in your account, and they expire in this case in 18 months. But
They call
just
that
having activity.
forfeit instead of expire. But yes, that's
Okay,
essentially
yeah,
for, yeah.
right, all right. points are forfeit. But as long as you use points or earn points, it resets the clock, resets 18 months for all your points. The 4-year thing, though, there's nothing you can do to reset the clock. The 4-year thing is based on when your points are earned, and then you have 4 years. Now there is a tricky workaround where you can move your point to Caesars,
Rewards, yeah.
and then move them back, and they come back as like new points. But there's limits on how many you could do. It takes a long time. It's fraught with problems, like where your points never reappear. So all kinds of things go wrong with that. So it's not an ideal solution. Also, some people have had some luck with just booking award stays, waiting a while, and then canceling them and having their points reset. I tried that, and it didn't really work for me. So yeah, it's all kind of mushy. But this 4-year thing, I don't think there's any other major hotel program that does that.
No,
And it's really
no.
irritating.
Yeah, I mean, we complain about the fact that there are some airline programs that have that. Emirates and Singapore have 3-year expiration policies. Turkish, so we've talked about those hard expiration policies where that's it, use it or lose it in that amount of time after you've transferred. But it's just a couple of airline programs, foreign airline programs. Never heard of a hotel program doing something like this. And in fact, in recent years, the push in general has been towards getting rid of expiration dates on points. I mean, we've seen the major U.S. airline programs get rid of that for the most part.
Right,
So,
right. And
yeah,
Choice used to have a hard expiry, if I remember right,
yeah,
and they eliminated that a few years back.
right.
So Wyndham, time to get rid of it. I tried to suggest that to them. We'll see if anything happens. The guy in charge that I usually communicate with is on vacation, so hopefully when he gets back,
We'll take a look
he'll
at
be in a
it.
position to do something. And if you're listening, please do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Please do. And I think Barclays is probably going to, hope that somebody does too after that mistake. So, all right. That's the crazy thing. That out of the way. Let's talk about Mattress running the numbers. So let's switch over to some airline stuff. Mattress running the numbers. Well, sort of airline stuff, airline hotel stuff. Still in the hotel realm. So we have some new capabilities for transferring points around. We have some new partnerships here, or not new partnerships, but new transfer options. So you can take your Aeroplan points if you are an Aeroplan Elite member, and you can convert those to Marriott 1-to-1. You can take your Aeroplan points and convert those right over to Marriott 1-to-1. Good deal, bad deal? What do you think, Craig?
Bad deal. Aeroplan points can usually be used for better value than Marriott points. I mean, if you have Aeroplan points and don't know what to do with them, then I'm not sure why you're an elite member.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, not a good deal. And we don't know how long it's going to take to transfer the points. I'm going to bet it's not instant just because Marriott's a little weird about transfer times, oftentimes from different programs. So yeah, I don't, I wouldn't have much confidence in that being a good option. I mean, if you just needed a few points to top off for a stay, maybe, except I don't know that they'll transfer instantly. So anyway, so Airplane Elite members could transfer to Marriott 1-to-1, but shouldn't. And also, you can now transfer points between Marriott and MGM Rewards. So that's another transfer option nowadays. For every 1,000 Marriott points, you'll get 800 MGM Rewards points. So if you really wanted to, you could transfer Aeroplan to Marriott to MGM and make your Aeroplan points worth 0.8 of an MGM point per point, which,
Right.
no, don't do that.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do that.
This is an easy mattress running the numbers in that we don't have to debate should you or shouldn't you. Just don't do it. By the way, just to complete the story, MGM rewards can transfer to Marriott at that same ratio of 1,000 points transferred become 800 of the resulting points. So if you transfer back and forth, eventually you'll dwindle your points down to nothing. So
Yeah,
that's a way of using your points.
totally reminded me of that video a while back. It was one of those things about the currency conversion, like currency exchange. Somebody took $100 to see how many trades it would take to end up with nothing by
Oh,
just
I love it.
converting between different currencies. I don't remember what it was, but it was a funny video. Anyway, at any rate, so yeah, that's not a good deal if to go back and forth. Now, the Marriott and MGM partnership, I want to just briefly touch on that. So 1,000 Marriott points, well, actually what it is 10 to 8 is what they're calling it, but you need to transfer in increments of at least 1,000. So 1,000 Marriott points become 800 MGM rewards. MGM rewards are generally worth 1 cent each, used towards room, or you could charge spa treatments and restaurants and stuff like that to your room at an MGM property. So for every 1,000 Marriott points, you're getting $8 in MGM points. So it's about 8 tenths of a cent per point, which actually is a little bit above our reasonable redemption value for Marriott points. So I guess if you're
Yeah,
going to
good
Vegas
point.
and you want to indulge in something, then you could do that to cover those charges and get slightly better than reasonable redemption value. It's not exciting, but it's possible. However, only up to 30,000 points per year. So you're only going to be able to do that with 30,000 Marriott points, which means you'll get $240 worth of MGM rewards. So you get like one massage or dinner basically in Las Vegas. But you could do that if you wanted to. I think, and interestingly enough, when I read One Mile at a Time's post about this, and they said that that's probably the direction most people will be excited about. And I could see where maybe, like I said, it's a little bit better than reasonable redemption value, but not wildly exciting to me because of the 30,000 limit.
Yeah.
He didn't see as much value in the other direction, going from MGM rewards points, which are worth 1 cent each, to Marriott points, which are worth less than that. So if you're going 10 to 8 there, based on our reasonable redemption value, you're not doing well. Let's put it that way, because we value Marriott points at 7 tenths of a cent, and now you're only getting, at what, 8 tenths of that. So
Something
whatever that
less than
comes
that.
out to, yeah, so a little over half a cent per point in value,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically. But I thought that might still be interesting because MGM has an awful points expiration policy. So if you don't have elite status with MGM, points expire with 6 months of inactivity. So
Ouch.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to go to Vegas, like let's say you were going to Vegas for a big conference or a party or whatever it might be, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to earn a bunch of MGM rewards points and maybe I'll use them next year when I go to Las Vegas. Well, if you don't earn or redeem or whatever, have activity within 6 months, you're going to lose all those points. So I think this transfer to Marriott could be a good way to use it instead of losing it. If you were, planning a trip where you're going to earn a bunch, you go out to Las Vegas and you earn 30,000 MGM points, they're going to expire if you don't earn or redeem within 6 months. So it might be worth transferring over
Right.
to Marriott,
All
where
right.
at least they'll be valid for a long time.
But hold up. I don't know anything about their elite program, but if you earn 30,000 points, wouldn't you have elite status by then?
Oh, you might get pearl status with that, I guess. Yeah, I was thinking gold status because that's the one that really is valuable. But you're right, you might hit pearl status at that point. So maybe then you'll be okay. At any rate, I think that's potentially a use going in that direction, unless you want to use them
Sure.
for MGM also. I mean, the other thing is obviously Marriott has much broader applicability, much broader use. So if you want to go somewhere else in the world where there's not an MGM property, then you have a better chance of getting decent value out of your points with Marriott. So good
Yeah.
point though. If you did earn enough, you would earn some elite status probably.
Right. Also, one other thing I want to say about Marriott point value is that while the average we observed in our analysis was zero point 0.7 cents per point value, it's very easy to get higher than that. Like, so the spread is very wide. Unlike, like, for example, IHG has and Hilton both have much tighter spreads, meaning that it's less common to find much higher value or much less value. The In the case of Marriott, getting like zero point 0.9 cents per point value is actually really easy. Like, you don't have to look very hard to find that, and you can get even much better than that. So it's not as bad as it sounds
Yeah.
at
Yeah, there's
first.
opportunities to get outsized value where there's not opportunities to get outsized value with your MGM rewards points. It's like 1 cent per point is it. And then only towards stuff that you can charge at MGM, which, if you want to go to France, then it's not going to do you any good. So you may as well move your points over to Marriott if you think you might be able to use them for a property in France or whatever the case may be. So I think that there is some potential use there. All right, that's a long spiel that probably won't apply to a lot of people, but I figured I'd get it in there anyway. Let's move on to award talk. So for award talk this week, we got some United news out, huh?
Yeah. So first
Really
up,
news.
a number of years ago, when Chase first added Aeroplan as a transfer partner, I had said, I think on this show, that that I was excited because Aeroplan awards are going to be cheaper than United awards, and so I did some analysis after saying that, and I wrote a post called "United versus Air Canada, which is the better Chase transfer partner?" And in that post, I found that it was actually mixed. United was usually better for economy awards, business class awards. It depended where you're going. And first class awards, Air Canada was slightly cheaper, but not by a huge margin. That was then in 2021, I think. So I revisited this because we've seen a number of United devaluations since then. So I thought, oh man, this is going to be a bloodbath. United's going to look really bad now when I rerun this analysis. But I was actually surprised to see that the big picture results were basically the same. United still usually cheaper for economy flights. And when I say usually, I mean I selected like I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 example, routes. And so, you know, depending on where you go, from where and to where, you could have very different situation. But anyway, I found economy usually better with United, business class again mixed, sometimes better with United, sometimes better with Air Canada, and first class, Air Canada was still better. The difference is that now Air Canada for first class, international first class awards, Air Canada is so much better. It's ridiculous. Before they were a little bit better. Now, just to pick out one example, flying first class from JFK to Mumbai, Air Canada, you'd spend 130,000 points one way. United, you'd spend 220,000 points. This is for a partner saver award.
Yeah.
So,
Woo. Yeah.
yeah,
Way better with Air
that's
Canada.
ouch.
And that's without even mentioning that you could add a stopover for 5,000 miles too. So yeah, that's a pretty big difference. So yeah, that's interesting. And I think that you will get people that fervently argue one side or the other on this because of what happens to fit their redemption patterns.
Yeah,
But I think it's such an important thing to consider that it really will vary based on the scenario. So don't count one of them out because it's going to depend. You may have an upcoming trip and not have considered the other because you thought, oh, that one's always more expensive. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's something that you do need to consider when you're taking a look at your trip planning because it will vary from time to time, place to place,
yeah.
wherever you're going.
Yeah, one of the things that motivated me to look it up is I had seen for a friend, I had seen that flying Turkish Detroit to Istanbul to Doha uh, was available when they needed it in business class, and it was it was cheaper with through United for that route, and so that surprised me, and that made me remember. Oh man, I need to go back and update this post. But anyway, regardless of who's cheaper or not, there's many other factors that may matter more to you. Things like, uh, well, Nick mentioned Air Canada allows you to add a stop over 5,000 more points. Um, Air Canada also has many more partners. So if you want to fly, internationally, there's going to be much more opportunity to find flights where and when you want because there's so many more possibilities.
And they also
Um,
have access to more space on some of those partners. Like Singapore Airlines, for instance, doesn't
yeah,
release much business class space at all to most of their partners, but Air Canada gets a bunch of it.
yeah. On the flip side, Air Canada seems to be blocked from certain partners. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find any ANA award space, but could booking through United. Um, the and United has free changes and cancellations. Air Canada, you could get that by paying a lot more points, but then that
Mm-hmm.
uh, removes a lot of the advantage Air Canada sometimes has. So anyway, so they both have pluses and minuses beyond what the pure award price is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing just to mention there, you mentioned the ANA thing, so it bears repeating because we talked about this, I think, several months back. But those ANA flights should be bookable via Air Canada over the phone if you find them available via
Forgot.
United. They aren't showing up on the website. That is something that Air Canada has been working on, as I understand it. So hopefully we're going to see that come back at some point online. But at any rate, my understanding is you can book those flights over the phone. So there you have that.
Yeah, actually, very good to remind. That was a very good reminder. And United, I can't stop talking about this. Can I? United also has some partners, not many that Air Canada doesn't have. But
Yeah.
like, I think Aer Lingus is one that they still are partners with that you could book
Yeah, and I think
through United.
Airlink, which is in South Africa, I think is available via United, but
Mm,
not Air Canada, if I remember correctly. And that can be useful if you're trying to connect around in Southern
yeah,
Africa. Anyway,
but for
there are some,
every
yeah.
For
Yeah,
every one
every one of
United
those.
example, there's
Yeah,
like
there's
5 Air Canada
yeah,
examples.
totally true. Totally true. So lots of interesting stuff either way there. I'll tell you the reason that I might lean towards Air Canada though is because you have the ability to transfer to Air Canada Aeroplan from so many more different types
Mhm.
of currencies, whereas United it's only Chase, and as we'll talk about later, it's not my favorite of the Chase transfer partner uses. There are others that I prefer, so I don't really like to transfer to United, but if
Right.
you earn a lot on United miles, you'd feel differently, like I said. So, all right, that's good, but
Yeah.
that's not all the news. You got some more United news that makes
Yeah,
United
no,
look even a little better here.
as I was doing award searches on United, I just stumbled upon when I was logged in, I was seeing discounted awards on United's partners, and it said on the screen because I had Premier status. So I have Premier Silver status, thanks to having Marriott Titanium status, and Marriott and United have this partnership where that happens. But um, and then we asked people through our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group, what if you just have the United credit card and not elite status? Are you also seeing these discounts? And they were. And the reason that's exciting, so they weren't big discounts. So the example that I first found was flying Detroit to Istanbul on Turkish. In economy, it would have cost me 44,000 points. That was the price when I wasn't logged in. I saved 40,000 points by being logged in. In business class, you save 8,000 points because it's 88,000 points for someone who doesn't have a card or doesn't have elite status, or 80,000 points for someone who does have one of those. So small discount, but it's significant because when we've seen discounts before due to having the card or uh, elite status, it's been specifically United flights, and I believe specifically economy only. That part I'm a little less sure about, but that's
I think
my
so. That's all what I
memory.
remember. Yeah.
So now we're seeing both economy and business, and we're seeing it on partners too. After doing more searches, I see that this shows up also on United flights. It's not all flights everywhere. It's just I don't know what
Sometimes.
the magic is, but
Interesting.
so that was good news. It's not it's not huge. You know, you're not talking about a huge discount, but it does make a difference. Like in this case, what it's doing is United these days charges more for partner awards internationally than they do on their own flights, and what that's doing is bringing the price down. That example I gave with Turkish is bringing the partner price down to the United price, so
Yeah.
you get to fly there for the same price you would
Well,
if you flew that route.
yeah, and I wouldn't disregard a savings of 8,000 miles because Turkish sometimes has 4 seats available on their flights between the United States and Istanbul. And I have a family of 4. So if I were saving 8,000 miles per person, that's 32,000 miles. That's, not nothing. That's almost enough for
For sure.
another ticket in economy. So anyway, yeah, I think that's a really interesting find. Very cool. Also, want to fact check myself very quickly because I think I said before that transfers to United are only from Chase, and I realized I left out Bilt. You can also transfer from Bilt Rewards to United, but you can't earn as many Bilt Rewards as you can Amex points or whatever other currency of your choice is out there. That's why I didn't think of that the same way that I think of all the other options there are to transfer to Air Canada, but did want to fact check myself because I realized I was wrong. All right. So United discounts there. We talked a lot about United. When it comes to award searching, you made an update with your post about search tools, right?
I did. I've started maintaining 2 separate main posts. Like there's one on hotels, what are the best hotel award search tools, and for the one on flights, I almost completely rewrote the thing because what's happened is over time the tools for searching for flight awards have added added capability that was important to include in the main post, and I couldn't really do that easily with the way the post was written before. And what that is I call that the ability to discover awards. I call that a discovery function. That's where they've pre-stored like all kinds of search results and let you just run a simple query to find awards that are out there that have previously been found in recent days or recent hours to be out there. And then you can ideally quickly refresh that data to see if it's still available at the time you're looking. But the reason that's important to include in this is because these tools now let you do things like say, um, I want to fly from Detroit to Europe this coming summer in business class for 4 people. Show me what's available. Now, it'll show you what has been found up till then. It doesn't show you every possibility, but it will bring back results in most cases. Whereas if you just tried to if you try to do it the old-fashioned way, run live searches, you'd have to pick days one at a time, or sometimes a span of a week at a time, or whatever. But um, you would have to search like to each individual airport in Europe to do that type of thing, and that's like impossible. So by having tools that do this discovery function, it's really really awesome. It makes it possible to do a lot more than you could have before. But it's important also to have both functions, both that discovery function and a live search function, so that you can then say, okay, I think that I see flights to Budapest. Now I'm gonna rerun my search Detroit to Budapest over maybe a 2 week span, and just see what are the best options for that. So that way it'll both refresh and also may find things that were not cached that are maybe even better. So those are examples of things you can do. And so I laid out all of the current tools that I know of that can do that sort of thing, and just gave all the information about them. And so you could check out that resource.
Yeah, I think if you're new to award booking, you really ought to read this and try to soak it up and absorb it, because I think the award search tools have made it much easier to A, to find stuff, of course, but B, also to think about trips differently, because I think people that when they first get into award booking that were used to booking with money in the past look at things in a very sort of linear way. Like, okay, I want to go to, Madrid, and so I need to find a round trip flight to Madrid, for instance. And I think the award search tools make it a lot easier to say, oh, well, actually, there's a flight to Barcelona in business class that is the same price as an economy flight to Madrid. Maybe I'll fly to Barcelona and spend a day or two there, and then head over to Madrid, or whatever the case might be. That's just one, random example. But the bottom line is I think that those award search tools make it a lot easier to find and consider and look at trips differently and say, okay, well, maybe I could book one way this way and book the other way that way and put together my own round trip. I recently took a big trip around the world for most of the actually all entire month of August and a little bit of the end of July too. And a lot of people asked how I booked it, and it wasn't a simple answer. So it took me a while to put together the answer to that question, because I pieced together a lot of things. I found this and I booked this, and then I found that and I booked that. And I think the award search tools make it easier to do that, because they give you so many more options to consider. So
Yeah.
check that out.
And be prepared, Nick. We're gonna do a show where you're gonna talk us through how you did
Oh, I
that.
don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It'd be a long show. But speaking of long shows, we got a long one going already today. So let's keep it moving here and go on to graduate hotels now are part of Hilton Honors. So you can earn points on your stays at graduate hotels, and you can book with points and receive your elite status benefits. We've heard from lots of readers that say that they like the graduate hotels. So this is good news. It gives you another option for earning and redeeming Hilton points.
Yeah.
Sounds nice to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, we knew this was coming, but now it's actually, there.
Mhm.
You can actually now do it. So that's all good news to have more choice.
I did not realize, by the way, that graduate hotels are not only in the United States, but also in the press release I saw in the UK, also in college towns in the UK. It said so interesting. I have no idea where. I haven't looked that hard yet, but I thought, oh, well, I didn't even realize that they were,
Yeah,
in other
these
locations.
tend to be in college towns, and
Mhm.
and apparently there are colleges in the UK as well.
Apparently, who would have known? It's
Who
not
knew?
just Oxford. There's a couple of others too, apparently. So, all right. So let's talk about our main event.
Main event time. Chase points. Here are the 10 best and 5 worst uses of your ultimate rewards points. So let's just jump right into this, because last week we talked about how to earn the points. We won't get into that, because you can listen to last week's episode. But let's do the top 10. We're gonna count down. So starting with the least of the top 10, meaning
Number 10, starting with number 10.
this is
We're
a good
going 10,
use,
9,
but
8,
we're
7,
starting with
6,
number
5, 4,
10.
3. Yeah.
Yeah,
So use number 10 of our favorite uses.
yeah. So 10th up is using the Chase Sapphire Reserve card and booking travel through the Chase travel portal in order to get 1.5 cents per point value for any travel you book that way. So you can book hotels, you can book flights, you can book other travel-ish things.
Absolutely. And so it's a reasonable use. It's not the best use, not our favorite use, because there are ways to get even better than 1.5 cents per point with transfer partners. But it's nonetheless a pretty good use for a lot of people. I mean, you can do pretty well. And so it's not one that I use all the time, but it's one that I think is incredibly popular because it's very easy. It's a very easy way to get solid value out of your chase points. So that's number 10 of the good uses. And it's a rare instance where it does make sense to do that because with some credit card programs, Amex, I'm going to call you out here. If you try to use your points through Amex Travel, for instance, for hotels, for the most part, you're getting less. You're getting like more like 0.6 cents per point, I think, on average, without fine hotels and resorts anyway. I think you get 1 cent there. But at any rate, you're not going to get the same type of value that you can through Chase. This is a rare opportunity to get very good value using their travel portal. All right, that's number 10 of our favorite uses. What's up for number
Number
nine?
nine. Number nine is really specific. So this summer, Chase surprised us by having a 70% transfer bonus to Marriott. And I like that option. You can transfer to Marriott and book a high valued Marriott stay, like so where you'd be getting significantly better than average value for your points. And let me just give one real world example. I've talked before about how I like to stay at the Inn at Bay Harbor in northern Michigan. In the summertime, cash rates start usually around $700-800 per night. Sometimes we see much more. And point bookings these days are around 54,000 points. I mean, it varies a little bit, but that's a common amount that I remember seeing. 54,000 points per night. So with that 70% transfer bonus, that means 32,000 Chase points per night to stay at this hotel. And that's giving you, over 2 cents per point value for your Chase points.
There you go. So you can do pretty well with that transfer bonus. So, yep, that's a good number 9. A little bit better, or perhaps a good bit better than the 1.5 cents per point, given the right redemption. You do have to know what you're doing and have your redemption picked out to do that well, but it's a reasonable use. That's number 9. Number 8 is transferring to Emirates. You could transfer to Emirates now. Do keep in mind that 3-year expiration policy, the hard expiration policy that we mentioned before. It is a use it or lose it with Emirates, so be aware of that. But you can do things like book Emirates first class from New York to Milan, so JFK to Milan, or Newark, outside of New York City, to Athens. 102,000 points one way, plus a reasonable cost in terms of tax,
Around
$100 or so.
$130
Yeah, there you go.
in taxes, something
There
like
you go,
that.
something like that. So a reasonable amount of taxes. So Emirates first class, I mean, that's nice. You can do A380 between JFK and Milan, which would be my pick out of the two if you're just going for the experience, because they fly a 777 to Athens, so it's not quite the same. The seat is the same, but you don't have the shower and the onboard bar on the 777 that you do on the A380. So JFK to Milan, 102,000 plus 130 bucks or whatever it was that Craig said there. That could be a really good use, because that would be way more if you were going to buy it in cash. Then you get much better than 1.5 cents per point in value. So nice for that. I should also point out here, I like first class over business class, because business class is, I believe, if I remember correctly, 87,000 one way. So for only 15,000 more, you get a pretty cool experience. I think it's worth splurging for first if you can. However, if you have a larger group, then you're not going to get more than one seat at a time usually in first class. However, in business class, I have found 6 seats when booking far in advance on the JFK to Milan route. Quite often, again, booking far in advance, you can find 4, 5, 6 seats. So that might be something to keep in mind if you're traveling with a family or a group. That's number
Yeah,
8.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let me just say, if you can swing the first class, I mean, that's like a bucket list type of experience. Emirates does first class like really nicely. I mean, it's really posh and be a great experience in I think in either airplane. But yeah, if you could do the one from
The
JFK,
A380, yeah. Yeah,
that'll
that'll
be
be.
really nice.
Yeah.
We do have a post which we'll link to in the notes about how to find and book these first class awards. So look for that.
Final thing worth mentioning there too, Emirates is known for the fact that if they don't sell out the first class cabin, you may well be able to upgrade to it at the airport using your miles. So that's something else to consider, that you may book business class and hope that they don't sell many seats on your flight. You may be able to upgrade to first at the airport. So keep that in mind too. All right, 1098, number 7 is transferring to United to book freely cancelable positioning flights. We just talked about United, but why positioning flights? Why did you pick that for number 7 here?
Yeah. So, I mean, United has a lot of like good, but not like amazing uses. But one of my favorite things about United is that the awards are freely changeable and cancelable. And um, that makes a great combination for booking positioning flights. And so what I mean is let's take the example of flying on Emirates. Most people don't live near New York City or Newark, and so um, the idea is if you book that Emirates flight, you have to get to New York in order to take the flight. Um, United is a good choice for that, and and in fact, we've talked before. We have a whole show on booking positioning flights that you might want to book with two programs. Book with like American Airlines if you have those miles, and United or Delta or Southwest. Any of these ones because they all allow free cancellations. And by booking two flights to get to New York, you can take the first one, and if everything goes fine, great, and cancel the later one. But if the first one turns out to have problems and you're not able to you're not boarding on time, then cancel it and fly the other one. That's if you're trying to meet an important flight like that same day. If you fly in the day before, you're probably good with just one positioning flight.
True story. True story. Positioning to JFK might be tough with United miles, but don't forget LaGuardia is
Impossible
pretty close. Yeah. So you could position LaGuardia or obviously to Newark with
to
United.
Newark.
So
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. That's a problem when flying out of JFK. I don't like. We have very few options because Delta can get you there. Um, JetBlue used to be able to get
Yeah.
me there. It has very limited route network. Um, there's not a lot of options for booking positioning flights to JFK. So personally, I prefer to position to Washington Dulles if that's an option, just because there are more flights for me to there.
That's a great point. Yeah. So that's I think an important use for a lot of people positioning flights, because if you live somewhere that doesn't have a whole ton of award seats available to get to where you're going, you're probably going to need a position somewhere. So having some points that you can use that you can easily cancel if you need to is good. And also, like we often talk about the flexibility of awards. Greg's talking here about the ability to cancel your United award, but I'll also use this because if I find a great award from Washington Dulles, I'll book that, and then I'll need a positioning flight and I'll book that. But then if a different flight shows up that's more convenient, that leaves out of Newark, that's a pretty close drive for me. I can drive down to Newark. It's not close, 2 hours and 45 minutes still, but more convenient for me than flying to and from Dulles probably. So I might cancel that whole route through Dulles
Yeah,
entirely when I find
yeah.
the flight available via Newark or whatever the case might be. So it's nice to have these points to position for stuff so that you have flexibility to change your plans later on. All right. Number 6 of our top 10 favorite uses of Chase Ultimate Rewards points is transferring to BA Avios, but why?
In this case, we're going to use them to book Qatar Qsuites for 70,000 points. So from North America to Doha, you can fly Qatar Business Class for only 70,000 points one way. And that's just a great deal. If you get to fly in their Qsuites product, it's a incredible experience. So just a great way to use your points all around.
Yeah, yeah. So you can book that again through British Airways Avios, or you can book it through Qatar Avios also, I think. Is there
Mhm.
an advantage to booking through British Airways Avios for that one?
Not really. It's just Chase transfers directly to BA. I'm not sure they transfer directly to
Good point.
Qatar.
Okay.
However, it does make sense to link your British Airways and Qatar accounts together, and then even if your points are in, you can move your points from BA to Qatar then, but You don't have to, because even if your points are in the British Airways system, you can book awards from Qatar's website, and they might sometimes see better award availability than the British Airways site does. And I've seen that actually, where
Hmm.
a flight won't come up on BA.com, but it does show up on Qatar.com.
Yeah, and they will pull the Avios from your British Airways Executive Club balance, even though you're booking
Yeah.
through Qatar. So that's a nice little workaround there for that. Yeah, and Qsuites is an amazing experience. I've only gotten a chance to fly it on a short haul flight. Greg's flown it on a longer flight or two, and I'm jealous. So one of these days, I'm gonna take advantage of that.
All right. So number 5 is to transfer to Iberia Avios. Now, why would we do that?
Well, because Iberia Avios has some great sweet spots from the East Coast. So from East Coast cities like New York, Boston, I think DC, uh, maybe Chicago, it's 34,000 Avios one way off peak to fly to Madrid or Barcelona nonstop in business class. So 34,000 in business class off peak is pretty amazing. And you might hear off peak and think, I don't want to go to Madrid in January or whatever the case may be. But actually, if you look at the off peak and peak calendar, oftentimes there are times that I would consider probably peak times to travel that are classified as off peak. So that deal can be useful even in times that you might have thought of as peak. Though obviously, if you want to go in the middle of July, it's probably going to be peak. Even still, at 50,000 one way, that's still a good deal for business class to Europe. Problem is, it's a little tough to find. They typically only release 2 seats on each flight, and those are often gone pretty quickly. So it's a little tougher to find. But if you can find it, that can be a slamming deal for business class across the pond.
Now, what about some people might remember us talking about be careful with Iberia
Mm.
because awards are not cancelable at all. Where does that factor in with this?
Yeah, so that's partner awards. Most of their partner awards are not cancelable at all. So if you book an American Airlines flight, for instance, through British Air, or rather through Iberia Avios, which would be a different price, that wouldn't be the 34K that we're talking about here. But if you were to book an American Airlines flight with your Iberia Avios, it's totally non-refundable. Doesn't matter. There's no fee to pay to get your Avios back. You just can't get anything back. That's it. So maybe you'll get the taxes back if you cancel it, but you're not going to get any Avios back. So it's just a hard stop sort of a thing. It stinks. So you generally don't want to book most partner awards via Iberia. But if you're booking Iberia flights through Iberia, those are cancelable. So there is a small cancellation fee. I think it's $50 or so,
I think
similar
it's
to,
like
or
25,
maybe it's 25. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
up to 24 hours ahead or something like
That
that,
sounds right. That
until
sounds
it's
right.
too late to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could
So
cancel
it's not
these
bad.
and get your
Not bad.
Avios back. Yeah, not bad at all. So again, if you're booking travel on Iberia, you can do that. Also, I think if you're booking travel on British Airways, same thing applies. But I would hesitate to book travel on anybody but Iberia with Iberia Avios. And keep in mind also, those prices that we're talking about, the 34K and the 50K, that's for just a single segment. If you have additional segments, then it's going to cost more. But we sometimes see better availability on connecting itineraries. So for instance, if you were to fly New York to Milan via Madrid, you might have more luck finding award availability. And that combined flight is still, I want to say it was 44,000 Avios maybe or something. It was reasonable still in business class. So it might be worth checking connecting itineraries as well.
Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about earlier in the show about award search tools having the discovery function, that's where you might stumble across something like that, because how would you know to search every possible route?
Right.
But these tools, at least will have searched a lot of routes and would be able to surface to you, oh hey, there's that flight to wherever past Madrid that
Mm-hmm.
has that availability, whereas as Nick said, the nonstop flight to Madrid might not have any award availability, but going onward does. And I know it's weird, but that happens actually a lot these days.
Mm-hmm. Yep. With not just with Iberia, he's saying a
No.
lot, like across the board.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, that was number 5. Number 4, and our favorite uses of Chase Ultimate Rewards points is transferring to Hyatt for a specific reason, to book Hyatt suites. So, what's this about? How can I book a suite with Hyatt points?
Yeah. So Hyatt, it's really cool. Hyatt lets you book suites with points in a number of different ways, and the easiest to understand is that it's on their award chart. If you just want to pay more points for a standard suite or a premium suite, you look at their award chart. Premium suites generally cost twice what a standard room costs, and standard suites cost somewhere in between those two amounts. Um, So that's awesome. But there's also multiple options for basically paying cash and then upgrading with points, or booking a standard room and upgrading with points. Um, so those are all available, but even just the simple one, just booking straight out with points, can result in incredible value.
Yeah, I mean, so the standard suite, so the standard suites are around 1.5 times the cost of a standard room. It varies a little bit based on category, but think
Yeah,
about 50% more than the cost of a standard room. Now, you look up the difference in cash rates between a standard room and a suite. It's usually more than 50% more to book a suite.
right.
If it were only 50% more, I would be booking more suites. It can be a great value when you're using your points. And those premium suites, some of the premium suites are out of control. I mean, we stayed at the Grand Hyatt Dubai a few years back and booked the Prince Suite. And I mean, that was just an incredible, awesome suite for, again, double the cost of a standard room. So, as someone who travels with a family, a lot of times abroad, standard rooms will not accommodate all four of us. We'll need to get either two rooms. Or if I can find a suite or a premium suite, oftentimes the suites can accommodate four people. And so for the cost of booking two regular rooms, we can get a much better suite in many cases. So of course, this relies on finding availability. So you got to be able to find the suites available, and they're not always available. And sometimes they're available one way, but not another way. We have the video that we recently recorded about how to book Hyatt suites that we haven't published yet, but hopefully soon thereafter. Hopefully, when you're listening to this, you'll find this out there soon, if not yet, about how to do this, because there are, again, multiple different ways, and sometimes one way will show, but the other three won't, or vice versa, whatever the case might be. So that's one to keep an eye on, though, because there are sometimes some monster values to be had. Okay,
All
that's number
right.
four.
That was number four. So number three on our list, transfer to Air Canada Aeroplan and book a multi-partner award with a stopover for only 5,000 extra points. So Nick, give us an example. Why is this useful?
Well, this can be useful if you're adventurous and you're looking to piece together something, out of the ordinary, because Air Canada Aeroplan really caters to people who are kind of frequent flyer nerds and are interested in booking either unique partners or cool routes or mixing and matching. And that can be useful both to people like me that want to book a crazy itinerary with a bunch of stops on different airlines, and also to people with a more average use case, but you can't get all the way to where you want to go on a single partner. And so you need to put together a couple of unique partnerships. I just recently this summer visited Mauritius, and Mauritius is a good example of a place that's pretty tough to get to because there aren't a lot of airlines that fly there. And so then finding award availability on those select number of airlines can be tough on the major alliance carriers that fly there, because again, there's only a couple. But Air Mauritius partners with Air Canada Aeroplan, and they fly to Paris and London. And of course, Air Canada has other partners. They can get you to Paris or London. So you can fly on United, for instance, to get to Paris, and then fly Air Mauritius to get to Mauritius. And then you can stop in Mauritius and pay an additional 5,000 miles to have that as a stopover and continue on from Mauritius. And then you have Air Mauritius, for instance, could take you on to Australia from there to Perth. And so those types of awards are kind of interesting. And I find Air Canada's additional partnerships like Air Mauritius interesting because those partners, Air Mauritius is a great example of one. There's very few ways to book Air Mauritius with miles. They do partner with Air France, KLM, Flying Blue, but that's it. It's Air France or Air Canada for booking Air Mauritius with your miles, as far as I know, anyway. So there's not nearly as much competition for those awards. So if you want to fly a family to Mauritius and on to Australia, you can do that with Air Canada, and it's not too hard because there's often four seats available or more sometimes on those flights from London and Paris to Mauritius, and then also onward from Mauritius to Australia or Kuala Lumpur. So it opens up some unique possibilities like that. And so I find that fun. Also, because they partner with so many different airlines, there's a lot of opportunities for long stopovers. So on our three cards, three continents challenge several years back, which you can look back on the blog to find more information about that. But I booked a pretty complicated itinerary combining different partners, because when you combine two different partners on an award, it's actually pretty common that the flight times won't necessarily line up perfectly from a standpoint of trying to get to where you're going as quickly as possible, but they work out really well for Air Canada Aeroplan because I flew, for instance, from Washington, D.C. to Cairo, Egypt, and I had an 18-hour layover in Egypt, which was plenty of time to go visit the pyramids and to go see the Sphinx and all the fun stuff there and take a guided tour around and then go back to the airport and fly onward to Istanbul. And then I had a long layover in Istanbul, so I could stay overnight there. I could go see and do something in Istanbul. And then I continued on to Oman from there. And I had about a 16-hour layover in Oman. I flew those legs on Turkish Airlines, but then the next leg was on Oman Air. So again, I had like another 18-hour layover, something of that sort, where I was able to go snorkeling with whale sharks in Oman and then continue on. So I continued on and I added some other partners on that award too. I ended up flying 5 different airlines
Yeah,
and a one-way award over 5 days. So you can
that
do
was
some fun
epic.
stuff like that.
That
Yeah.
was epic, and that was without using the 5K
Yeah.
stopover, and
Yeah.
so he could have done even more
Right.
if you had time
Right.
to
Right.
actually stay somewhere for a while. But the nature of our challenges is that you often do not have much time to do things.
Right. Right.
So
But
yeah,
it,
that
it
worked out
creates
great.
some possibilities. It did. And this summer we did a complicated award that you can read more about on the blog. But we did some of that, some of the long stop or long layover stuff, even with kids, and it worked out fine. And there weren't any major meltdowns, and we had some fun and got to see a couple of places. So I think that while it seems a little intimidating to say, oh, I'm going to do a 23-hour and 55-minute layover somewhere and go see something and do something and get back to the airport, it's doable. It is doable if you kind of plan for it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. That was what? That was
Number
number
three. So now we're down to number two, which
Number
is
two, transfer to Flying Blue. We did that because it rhymes, right? Number two, transfer to Flying Blue.
well done.
And here, the reason we're going to transfer to Flying Blue is to book Air France or KLM Business Class from North America to Europe for only 50,000 points one way. What's so awesome about this is that both airlines have a pretty vast network. They fly to a lot of North American cities, and this 50K price point is sometimes available at all of the North American destinations. So, you could be flying all the way from the West Coast to Europe for that same 50K when available. That's a great deal. And, for the latest challenge, I flew KLM over and over and over. It just happened that way that they were like the best, but I flew not for the 50K price, but I flew from Vancouver to Zagreb in Croatia. It was, I can't remember how much I paid, but it was a little bit more than 50K. But someone who was on the flight with me recognized me. She had paid 50K for the flight to Amsterdam. So those awards do exist, and the experience is really nice. It's not like the best you're going to find in the sky kind of experience, but I found the experience really nice, and you just can't do much better than that price, especially from the West Coast. So that's great. One thing I do need to mention right now, as we're recording this, most of the award search tools do not have access to Air France KLM Flying Blue right now. They lost it recently, and so it's more important than ever to know how to bring up the calendar if you're logging into Air France's website or KLM's website. We have a post that shows you how to bring up the monthly calendar of award availability. So when you're searching from Vancouver to Amsterdam or wherever, then you can see a month at a time and when that 50K price is available.
Mm-hmm. It's worth mentioning that Flying Blue has moderate surcharges, so you're going to pay around 200 to 250-ish, 230, I think maybe, dollars in taxes and fees on a one-way to or from Europe.
That's right. That's right.
Unless you find availability on Air Europa, which flies JFK or Miami to Madrid, and there's none of that. It's just $10 and change in taxes on the Air Europa flights, but those are much tougher to find. So good luck with those. And they do cost a little bit more than 50K. I think they cost 60 or 62 or something like that. So it's a slightly different price in terms of the number of miles you'll need. But this is a great deal, I think, because it's often available, not like all the time, but if you're planning in advance and you're willing to position to a couple different airports, it's not impossible to find. It's easier to find than a lot of other programs. And even when you don't find the 50K price, like Greg said, you may still find a price that you're like, oh, 60K or 62K or 65 or
Right.
whatever it might be. It's still pretty reasonable in a lot of cases. Of course, not all cases. If you want to go to Europe in the middle of July and you're looking to book in June, you're going to have a hard time with that. It's going to be expensive and tough. But if you plan in advance anyway and you're a little bit flexible, those are gettable, I think, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, and this is another example where often there's better availability or better pricing, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
when you go to smaller airports. So check flying, past Paris to Lyon, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the price will come down. Just as one. I mean, there's just so many examples, but I just wanted to be more concrete with what I meant.
There are tons. And if you really just want to go to Paris, also keep in mind that they have some connections that are via train. And so then I imagine you must have to pick up your bags. And so if you miss your train, probably nobody will ever know because I can't imagine they tell Air France that you missed the train. So if you look up in a word, for instance, to Brussels, that you're going to find an itinerary where you're connecting to a train from Paris to Brussels. And so there's tons of other opportunities like that, options like that too. So like Greg said, connecting itineraries often will have better availability and maybe better pricing. So keep
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
mind.
It's so funny that I didn't remember about the train to say that because Lyon, which I mentioned a minute ago, is one of the places you could
There
go
you go.
by train. So you can book, from the U.S. to Lyon, and the way it shows up on Air France's website is flying to Paris and then taking the train from there to Lyon.
Yeah, there you go. So lots of opportunity there. All right, that was number two. Number one, our number one fun use. I tried for the rhyme again. Of Chase Ultimate Rewards points. So our number one favorite use. What is it, Greg? Let me give you the drum roll.
I can't even hear it, but the number one is to transfer to Hyatt. Uh, so yeah, we talked about transferring to Hyatt before about booking suites, but just in general, booking Hyatt hotels uh, is such a great use of your chase points because on average, now this is on average when we've looked across Hyatt hotels in the U.S., we've seen around 1.7 cents per point value, but it's so common to get a lot more than that at Hyatt hotels. And so it's just really easy to get great value. And one of the things that really helps too is that Hyatt does not charge resort fees on award stays. So if you're staying at a resort or a place that has a destination fee and you book it with points, you're not paying that fee, but you do get whatever the benefits are included with those destination or resort fees. So it's a win-win. Nick and I both use this all the time. I pulled up, Nick, your recent re-review of the Grand Hyatt Kauai, where you said the normal resort fee I think was $55 plus tax, so you didn't have to pay that.
Right.
And of course, you had an amazing stay.
Yeah, it's a fantastic property and often very expensive to book with cash. So you get a good value with your Hyatt points, and of course it's not the only one. There's lots of Hyatt hotels out
Oh
there. One of
no,
the things we should back up and say one of the things we love about Hyatt is they still have an award chart, unlike the other major hotel programs. So you know what to expect at each category level. Now they do tend to shift properties around every year in March, but most of the year you can count on, okay, well I know this property is a category 3, so it's going to be between the off-peak and peak price for a category 3, whenever it is that I decide to book it, at least until the categories change next March. So that's nice because it sets expectations and it also gives you opportunities for really outsized value at times when their peak travel periods where a lot of people want to go, whether that's for a major event or because it's just a peak travel time when kids are out of school or when everybody wants to go to a particular place. So there are opportunities to get just really far outsized value for your Hyatt points in that way. And there's lots of little things like the no resort fee on award redemptions. If you're a globalist and you're booking an award, you get free parking, which can be really big in places where parking is expensive. So there are a lot of reasons to love Hyatt. And it's very easy both at the high end. You know, we both like high end hotels. So Grand Hyatt Kauai is a good example of a place that's expensive in cash. It's also kind of expensive in points, but a good deal in points. But Hyatt offers great value at the other end too. If you want to stay at a Hyatt
Does.
place, you're booking a Hyatt category 1 or category 2 somewhere, you can get great value out of your points booking lower category hotels also.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not unusual to see, 5,000 points, 8,000 points, somewhere in that range per night for a hotel that might be charging $200 a night or more. But because it's a category 1 or 2, it's really cheap. Yeah, we see that frequently. So yeah, that's what we love. We will get to our worst five in a moment. But first, we need to talk briefly about transfer bonuses. Um, every now and then, Chase offers a transfer bonus to one of its transfer partners, which means that instead of transferring 1-to-1, you get more than 1-to-1 of the resulting thing. So, for example, twice this year there was a 20% transfer bonus to Air Canada Aeroplan. So that means if you transfer 10,000 points to Aeroplan, you end up with 12,000 Aeroplan points. And actually, if you have the Air Canada, Chase Air Canada card, that gives you a 10% bonus when you transfer from Chase. So you'd really end up with 13,000 points in that example. They also did twice a 30% transfer bonus to Virgin Atlantic, which I don't think we talked about Virgin Atlantic in our top 10, but they have some sweet spots as well that are worth considering. They did a 25% transfer bonus to Air France KLM Flying Blue, so that's a nice way to get more, Flying Blue points. They have never done a Hyatt transfer bonus. They never will. Same with United. We don't expect transfer bonuses to either of those, so don't hold your breath for those. We have seen transfer bonuses to both IHG and Marriott, but in general, we don't recommend them unless they're as high as like 70% to Marriott.
Yep, very good. You know, at Virgin Atlantic, you mentioned the 30% transfer bonus there and mentioned that we didn't include them in the top 10. And I think that it was good for you to say there are also uses of Virgin Atlantic miles that are top 10 adjacent. So, pretty
Absolutely.
close. We mentioned the Air France Flying Blue for 50K to Europe in business class. It's about the same number of miles if you book via Virgin Atlantic. In fact, 48,500 miles during the off-peak dates if you book via Virgin Atlantic.
And
And
isn't
the
that just from the
availability.
East Coast though?
That's true. Yes, from
Yeah.
the East
So
Coast.
so
Yes.
so
hmm
that's why we picked the Air France one above it. But yes, absolutely. There are times where Virgin is the right way to go for sure, and it's
They
just
well, the
barely
additional
didn't make
point.
our top 10.
Right. Yeah, right. The additional point I was going to make about Virgin Atlantic, though, is that sometimes they have access to more space at the better pricing than Air France does. So sometimes the price will be lower through Virgin Atlantic. So
Mm,
it's worth looking at for those same flights because
yes.
there are times when Air France doesn't have those 50K seats available, but Virgin Atlantic does on the same flights. So it's worth taking a look. Okay.
Right, right. And I'll also mention that flying economy can be actually a lot cheaper booking through Virgin. Flying Air France or KLM economy can be cheaper booking through Virgin Atlantic than booking through Flying Blue.
Yep. Yep. So transfer bonuses are something to keep an eye on because if you're getting a 20 or 30% transfer bonus, that can make any of those things we just talked about sweeter yet.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Lastly, before we get to the worst five, there's the in between use, which is don't forget that you can cash out your points to your bank account for 1 cent each. So if you're doing anything, and that's where our worst five comes into play. If you're doing anything where you're getting less than 1 cent per point value, then it's not a good use. In fact, if you're doing anything where you're getting exactly 1 cent per point value, and it's an award type of thing, and you're not earning points from the purchase, that's not great either because you could instead just buy the thing with your credit card and earn points for the spend. So what you're looking at for the best ways to use choice points is always to get better than 1 cent per point and use that 1 cent per point cash out as like the absolute worst.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, Greg just alluded to it, but to put some math to it, let's say you're looking at a flight that costs $1,000 or 100,000 points. So you say, oh, well, okay, it's 1 cent per point. I'll just book it with the points. Well, if you cash out that $1,000, so you take your 100,000 points and cash it out for 1 cent a point, you have $1,000 and buy the flight. If you're using a card that earns 3 points per dollar on an airfare, then you could be earning 3,000 miles on that flight, and the net cost to you is the same. It's the same 100,000 either way, but you'd be earning 3,000, which would also then be earning towards elite status and other things potentially. So, and maybe there's other ways to stack it. If you're doing a hotel stay, you might have shopping portal rewards and various promotions you can take advantage of to earn even more points on the stay if you're booking with cash. So 1 cent per point is a good benchmark, but keep in mind that if you're only getting that much out of your points, it probably makes more sense to cash them out and pay for the thing using the money that you've cashed out. So, all right, that out of the way, what are our worst five? What are the things that people should not consider doing with their Chase Ultimate Rewards points?
All right. So these are roughly sorted again from best of the worst to worst of the worst. However, the first bullet point could be anywhere in that list, which is transferring to any program to book a low value award is a really bad use. And so with any of them, Flying Blue or a Hyatt, any of them, it's possible to transfer your points and use those points to book something where you're getting less than 1 cent per point value, potentially much less. A Now, for those who don't know how to figure that out, here's a simple way that will work in most cases. If you if you log into your Chase travel portal under your like Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve account, and you look up the price in Chase points by booking that way, and then compare to the price and points when booking like through Hyatt or through Flying Blue or whatever the program is. If Chase is cheaper, then transferring to the other program doesn't make sense. And it's not always as easy as that, because the even if they're exactly the same, Chase is better because usually it depends on the
Yeah,
situation.
that's going
But
to depend.
like with airlines, you're usually also paying a fee on top of the points. Whereas going directly through Chase, you're not. With hotels, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, and with hotels, you may prefer to earn elite nights and benefits and things like that.
Exactly.
So it gets a little bit more complicated, but that's a good benchmark if you're not particularly handy with math. That's a good benchmark to test and see whether that makes sense. But yeah, transferring to a program to book a low value award, you don't want to do that. So you want to figure out how to figure out what those low value awards are and avoid those.
Yeah.
All right. So that's fifth out of our poor uses, our
Right.
best of the worst. That's our best of the worst uses.
Right. What's number four worst use?
Buying gift cards. Buying gift cards with your points generally is not going to make sense. In a lot of cases, you're going to get less than 1 cent per point in value. And so that is just a non starter, as we said before. But even if you're getting 1 cent per point in value, it's still usually not a good deal to use your points for gift cards, because almost all types of gift cards can be bought somehow at a less than face value amount. So there's lots of different ways out there, apps you can use, different third-party gift card websites where you can often get some sort of a discount or shopping portal rewards when you're buying gift cards, or use things like an Amex offer to buy a gift card at a merchant, etc. So there's lots of ways to get your gift cards at less than face value. So using your points at 1 cent per point to get a gift card, just a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Number three worst way to use your points is to transfer to Marriott when there is no transfer bonus. Um, so, yes, it's possible to get better than 1 cent per point when you're redeeming your Marriott points. So, you might say, well, doesn't it make sense then if I'm looking at a hotel where I'm going to get, 1.5 cents per point value booking my Marriott stay? Shouldn't I transfer then? And here's the thing, Marriott frequently runs sales on their points where points cost less than about zero point 0.9 cents each. So you're better off watching for a sale like that and buying points that you need rather than booking that stay. Of course, if there's not a sale going on, the standard price for Marriott points is 1.25. So you could think of it as like if you do end up doing this, make sure that the value of your stay is more than 1.25 cents per point, or else it doesn't make sense. But there are situations where you might want to top off your account a little bit, I think.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Because you remember you could cash out your points and buy Marriott points with that cash. So you could end up with potentially, a better deal by buying the points if you really need them. But yeah, so you got to
Right.
do the math and figure that out. But generally speaking, we would not transfer to Marriott without a transfer bonus.
Right.
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 Next up on our worst uses of Chase Ultimate Rewards points is shopping with points, like at Amazon.com. Don't do it. Don't do. I know you look at it and you're like, oh, but I can get my Amazon order for free. Yeah, but no, it's costing you a lot of value. You could get out of your Chase Ultimate Rewards points because you're only going to get 8/10 of a cent per point. That's less than 1 cent per point. Just buy the stuff on Amazon and then cash out your points at 1 cent per point. And it's going to cost you fewer points.
Yeah, yeah, it's that simple. Unless you want to kind of support the rest of us, because people use their points this way that these programs can afford to give us more valuable rewards, like the ability to transfer to Hyatt. Um, because it all kind of equals out that they're saving money when you spend when you shop with points on Amazon, and they're losing money when we transfer to Hyatt. And so if you are doing that, thank you, but we don't recommend it.
And also now if you say, well, wait a second, I saw on Frequent Miler at some point that I could save money at Amazon when I use Chase points to buy something. Because every now and then you'll see one of these deals like, I don't know, save $15 off of 50 or save 10% off of this much or whatever when you use points to pay for your purchase. But if you read those posts carefully, you'll know that we'll always say that using 1 point is usually enough to trigger the discount. All you need to do is use at least 1 point in order to get the $15 off of 50. Let's say that they run sometimes. The details on that vary. They change all the time. So that's not necessarily current. You would need to look up if there's even a current deal and what it is. But usually you can use just 1 point in order to get that $15 off. And that's all you want to use, because if you use more than 1 point, you're getting, again, this 0.8 cents per point in value. So it's a poor value. Just use 1 point and get the discount. And then if you really don't want to pay cash out of pocket for your Amazon purchases, then cash out your Chase points at 1 cent each and use fewer points on that purchase. So don't use them to shop at Amazon, please. Or like Greg said, do so
Absolutely.
with our appreciation for supplementing the game for the rest of us. All
All
right, but that's not
right.
the worst. What's
Finally,
the worst of the
finally,
worst?
the number one worst way to use your Chase points, in our opinion, is to transfer 1-to-1 to IHG One Rewards.
Why are you hating
So
on IHG,
IHG,
Greg?
yeah, why am I picking on IHG? Because the transfer ratio is only 1-to-1, and IHG points on average are only worth about like zero 0.6 or 0.7 cents each. But even worse, they frequently run sales or have other ways of buying points for half a cent each, or sometimes as much as like zero 0.6 cents each. But either way, you're way better off um, redeeming your Chase points for cash and then buying those IHG points when they're on sale, or there's some way to get them for as low as, like I said, 0.5 or 0.6 cents each. And then yes, there are occasions where you're going to get good value doing that, but I don't see any time where it makes sense to transfer 1-to-1 to IHG from Chase. No.
Yeah, so to keep the math simple, they do often sell points for half a cent per point. So if you were to cash out your Chase points at 1 cent for a statement credit or for a deposit to your checking account or whatever the case may be, and then buy IHG points, for every one Chase point that you redeem for cash, you could buy 2 IHG points. So it's kind of like building your own 100% transfer bonus, and you can
Right.
do it like almost any month of the year because IHG so frequently sells points for half a cent per point. I say almost any month. I mean, maybe that's not quite as true now as it used to be. Hilton is more common with their cheap point sales than IHG is these days. But still, if you keep your eye out, you can kind of build your own transfer bonus there. So I would be looking for that to buy the IHG points. And if you want to cash out Chase points in order to pay for them, by all means do that. But don't transfer 1-to-1 to IHG. There's just no world in which that would make more sense. Because even when they sell them, with a not as good of a discount, you'd still be better off buying them than transferring from
Yeah.
Chase. So don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So our bottom line of each of these is: do transfer to Hyatt, don't transfer to IHG.
There you go.
to simplify the whole thing.
Very easy. Very easy. Hyatt for your hotel stays, and then otherwise use them for airlines. Don't transfer them to IHG, and maybe Marriott with a really big transfer bonus. So that's
Yeah.
the
Yep.
simple story, I guess. All right. There are our favorite uses of Chase Ultimate Rewards points. Now, let's be clear, those are not the only uses of Chase Ultimate Rewards points. There are some other good uses, like Greg piped in with the Virgin Atlantic bit there, and there are some others also. So these are not, this is not meant to be an all-inclusive list. These are just our favorites where you can certainly get some good value. And don't forget to look at the show notes for links with more information about a bunch of these. So if you're like, oh, that's interesting, but I don't know a lot about that, look to the show notes for links to find out more about that, or leave a comment, leave a question, and we'll always work to try to make sure we answer all of those. All right, I think that means it's time for this week's question of the week.
Hit me
So
with it.
this week's question of the week was a little long and complicated, so I'm going to try and truncate it down a little bit here. So we had a reader who I'm going to keep anonymous for their own good, who wrote in about getting their travel points accounts hacked. And so I'll tell a little bit of the story and then ask the key part of the question. So this is the basic gist of the story. This person says, 2 days ago, my Choice Privileges hotel program and my Wyndham Hotel Rewards were hacked on the same day by the same person. Choice sent me an email that someone changed my email on my account. I called right away, and they said someone called in and changed it. They had all my info. Choice worked with me to get it back. Well, a day later, he hacked it again. Once again, I called, and Choice helped me get it back. Within 10 minutes, he hacked it again for a third time. I was using different emails and passwords every time. I finally worked with the rep and we had to use someone else's address and phone numbers because as fast as we get it back, they would call and switch it back again. The hacker kept calling back in and getting it switched over the phone. So Choice was good to work with. So far, so good. But apparently, with very little information, you can call and get Choice to switch, which is not good. That's too bad. There's no two-factor authentication on Choice, he says. For the Wyndham account, was hacked the same day, and they say, sorry, you got to email the department for help, and they'll help you within 3 to 5 business days. So they weren't even able to get back into their Wyndham account. They have to email and hope. So they were able to figure out that the Wyndham account got hacked by the same person with the same email address. But again, all they could do is email Wyndham in order to try to get that back. I think they're probably going to be successful and probably going to get that all worked out. But the core question comes back to what do you do and how do you protect your info and protect your points in different programs, or how do different programs help you? If how do you deal with this stuff, Greg? Because obviously they went on to say points are like money. Hackers are going after them. They had a bunch of points in their Choice account and their Wyndham account. Hackers went after them. What can you do to protect yourself from getting your miles and points hacked? How do you handle that? And what do you use, or techniques, or don't tell me all your do tell me all your, no, don't tell me all your passwords. Uh, what do you use in order to keep your miles and points safe? Because they are kind of like, I mean, we just talked the other day about how the DOT and Pete Buttigieg are going after loyalty programs to get more information about how those points and devaluations work, because more Americans are looking at them as like a savings account. Get this huge savings account somebody can hack into. That doesn't sound good. How do you keep your points safe?
Yeah, no, it's not good, and I had a similar thing happen with Hilton years ago,
I
where
remember.
someone hacked it the same way. They changed called in and changed my account. Um, so I don't think there's any like 100% surefire safe approach, but some things you can do. Use strong passwords for one, and the only way to do that in a good way is to use some sort of password manager, um, because you, otherwise you're going to end up writing down these passwords, or cheating and using a simple password, or using the same password over and over. That's a no-no. Because if you end up using, here's an example why that's so bad. If you end up using it on an account where that software gets hacked, or maybe it's a fraudulent site to begin with, then they're going to go try to use that password on a lot of other sites, and you don't want them to be successful. So that's an example. Use two-factor authentication wherever you can. Ideally, some sort of device authentication. More and more, like websites will let you use your like laptops, like camera or thumbprint reader or what have you, to authenticate yourself, and that's really ideal. And the other thing is protect your email like crazy. That to me, I feel like that's the number one thing, because there's so many places where if someone could get into your email, then they can hack you easily because for one thing, they can find your account numbers in some like email exchange, and even more, they can go into Choice or Wyndham or whatever, click the forgot password button, have a reset link sent to that email that they're in, click it and change the password to something you don't know, and then they're in, and they can at that point like also change they might be able to change the email address or whatever, but they can also do things like delete the emails that come in that say you've changed your password before you see them. And so anyway, they've got control of your life if they get into your main email. So make sure that's protected with, more than anything else, with strong password and two-factor authentication.
Yeah, yeah. And keep an eye on your email accounts, because in this case, this reader found out about it because Choice sent them an email saying, hey, you changed the email address in your account. If this wasn't you, let us know. And that kind of thing happens. I actually, just a couple of days ago, I got an email from one of the programs that told me that my account had been logged into from a location that I knew wasn't me. And so that gave me pause right away. And so I went and changed my password immediately on that particular program,
Yeah.
and then questioned, okay, well, what else might have happened here? Although in that specific instance, I have clue as to why it might have happened, but it wasn't me nonetheless. So at any rate, you do need to keep an eye on all that stuff, and it is important. Now, in the past, I know you used a tool to monitor your point balances. That's how you found about the Hilton hack, right? Because I think did you get a notification about them redeeming points? Is that an Award Wallet
In that
or?
case, it might have been an email. I can't remember
Yeah.
how I got
Okay.
notified, but I do use a Word Wallet to watch all the accounts that it works on, and which is a lot of different loyalty programs. There are a few that it doesn't. Um, yeah, I mean that's a great option, because if the program itself doesn't alert you that your points have been used, Word Wallet will tell you that your points balance has changed, and you could look and be like, what happened here?
Mhm.
So that's good. It also actually adds a bit of complexity to the whole situation, though, because in some cases, Word Wallet will be trying to check your balance, and that will launch a two-factor, like a text message
True.
with a code, and the Word Wallet then won't be able to log in because you got the code and you don't know where it came from. And it looks like someone's trying to hack you, but it's just a Word Wallet. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind, that
Yeah. So there's
happens. And
some complexity there. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck, hopefully. And do keep us updated, by the way. I'd love to hear about the resolution as to what happened if you asked this question and just heard it and you're like, oh, yeah. So let us know. But that kind of thing is probably happening all the time and going to continue to happen. So I'm sure there are lots of other people that it has happened to. So do all the things that Greg said in order to try to keep your miles and points safe, because they do have value and it can be a headache if they get hacked. So good luck with all of that. All right, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. If you enjoyed this and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. Follow us on all the various social media. You can find our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group where you can join up and ask and answer questions like this all the time with lots of other folks who are highly knowledgeable about the topic. So that's all the good stuff. And if you have a piece of feedback for the giant mailbag or a question you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week, you can send that too.
you could send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com.